Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this big guy right here. This is the Spyderco Military. First off, I want to thank my buddy Steve for sending one of these along. It's been on my list forever. This is one of the Spyderco sort of stalwarts in the lineup, but I've never actually gotten a chance to play with one, so thank you very much there, Steve. Next thing, of course, we got to do a size comparison. Right here is your Spyderco PM2, a paramilitary 2, which is a smaller version in a lot of ways of the military, although with some major differences that we'll talk about later. Right here, of course, is your Ontario Rat number 1 in D2 steel. So you can see here the military is not a small knife by any measure. Of course, your Spyderco Delica, which is absolutely dwarfed by the military, pardon me, and your Spyderco Dragonfly, which is just tiny next to this big old guy. So there you go. Next thing to highlight, this guy is a sprint run, which means this is a limited edition sort of thing using these undyed G10 scales and using CPM M4 steel, which is a great steel. But the majority of your militaries are going to be coming in different scale colors and different blade steels. So keep that one in mind. And then finally, there is no disassembly. Unfortunately, this particular knife was produced during the time when Spyderco was using a lot of permanent thread locker. They have since sworn it off, which is one of the better customer service things anyone's done in a while in the knife world. But still, unfortunately, this one was affected. And given that the screws are starting to strip out, I didn't really want to fight that one. So there you go. Let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very, very large little knife. Okay, so on the good side, first off, this has a great blade on it. And that's for a couple of reasons. First off, the shape of the blade is very nice. You get some flat area, some curved belly area. That's nice. And it is actually a relatively slicey blade. You can see that the blade stock here is unquestionably thick. I mean, putting it next to the Delica, this is a thick blade, but it's got a nice tall grind to it, and it is still relatively slicey. Unlike a lot of other companies, Spyderco has not mistaken military for a blade that cannot cut. They have given us a cutting tool here, rather than a sharp and pry bar, and that's something I appreciate because you still get a nice thin tip, which is good for stabbing cuts, like going into clamshell packaging. It's a very, very nice thing, but it's not so much a beater as a cutting tool. Keep that in mind. Then finally, on the blade side, you get a bunch of steel options. Like I said, this is a sprint run in M4, but you can also get all kinds of other sprint runs, and all kinds of other steels. So if you've got a favorite and you're willing to, hunt one down and pay the price, you can probably get a military in it. And the other thing is they have base models in S30V, which is a great steel, and S110V for $15 more, which is even more wear resistant and has a lot of advantages. So that's really great. So I like the blade on this guy very much. And by the way, sorry about the voice. I've been sick lately. Anyways, moving along. Next thing, this guy is actually a lot lighter than you would expect. This comes in at 4.35 ounces for a blade that is about 4.2 inches long. So that's almost an ounce an inch, which is a very good metric for, lightness of a blade. And this is because of these partial liners in there. Next thing, this is a liner lock knife, and it's got a very strong and nice liner lock. Has very, very strong lock bar tension, absolutely not going anywhere. This is very secure, nice thick liner. And it's got a strong lock bar tension, but it's got a lot of lock bar access. So it's very easy, even though there's that strong tension, to get in here and close the knife one-handed. That's very, very nice. I think they've done a great job with this liner lock here by making it both strong but easily accessible, so it's very easy to unlock again. So I like the liner lock guy on this very much. It feels very solid. Next thing, this has a nice, big, beefy clip. And although big knives don't often necessarily need big clips, for something like this, the extra retention is very nice and is something that I appreciate. Next thing, this has very big hardware. I mean, seriously, look at the freaking pivot on this thing. This thing is huge. We're talking T15 here, and I believe we're at T10 on the rest of the handle screws. Yeah, we're in T10. That's great. I tend to like bigger hardware just because it's a little less fiddly. It's a little harder to strip out. And the fact that they went there on this is pretty excellent. So I appreciate that very much. The detent on this guy is actually very nice, and it makes it very easy to pop this knife out just using the detent. And if I could get in there and clean it up, I think it would be even better. But overall, the action on this guy is very nice on phosphor bronze washes, which, again, helps with the robustness a little bit in the grand scheme of things. Then finally, I want to highlight that this is one of Spyderco's oldest models. It's got over it. Well, okay, I'm sorry, that's completely false. This is one of Spyderco's older models that's been running continuously. It's got about a decade worth of work into it. And what I mean by that is that Spyderco is known for what's called CQI, is continuous quality improvement. And basically, they just make continuous small improvements in models as they are producing them. And so a model of military that rolled off the factory on day 5 of its production is going to be very different than one that rolled out yesterday. They're constantly making these small changes. And so this means that this knife has had a chance to grow and improve in a way that a lot of other companies' knives have not. It's something I really have come to appreciate because there are so many makers out there who are making a single model of a knife for like 2 months or something like that, and then they've moved on to the next thing, never to do the other one again. This is just a really nice way to go things, and to get a knife that is very, very mature, that all of the issues have largely been worked out, and so you just get something that works. And so I appreciate so much the fact that they're willing to do a long run of this and that they're willing to make those constant changes, and it really does show in a very smart design with very few remaining design flaws. So that's to me what's good here is that they've done a long history of tweaks to the model here. It's got a great detent and action. It's got nice big hardware on here, big screws, big clip, a very strong liner lock, which got very good lock bar tension, great access to it. It is lighter than you would expect, which is nice. It is a relatively slicey blade with a lot of steel options, and it's a great shape and everything. So let's talk about what's great here. To me, what's great about this knife, unquestionably, are the ergonomics. This just feels great in the hand. In a couple of ways. Between the finger choil up here and then the spine here, and with the jimping involved, this just locks into the hand even with these 2 fingers alone. Even just gripping here, this knife is not going anywhere. But then add in the fact that you've got your liner lock cut out here, which just perfectly locks in with my middle finger. And given I've got smaller hands than most, maybe your mileage is going to vary. And then this palm swell here grabs these other 2 fingers. Look, this is a very, very secure knife in my hand. I can hold this and it is just not freaking going anywhere. And even if I choke back, it's still solid. And so I love, love, love how this feels in my hand. Spyderco is great for ergonomics, but man, is this great for ergonomics. And so that's what's great here is the ergos here are just freaking stellar off the charts. Let's go on to the bad. Okay, so on the bad side, first off, 2 things that aren't really bad, but are something that surprised a lot of people. This is using a liner lock rather than the compression lock. I think a lot of people see the Paramilitary 2, PM2, which uses the compression lock to great effect, and the compression lock's a great lock, 100%, and they assume that the military must have that as well, but no, this is a liner lock. It's a good one, so I don't think that's a problem, but it's something that catches people off guard. The other thing that catches some people off guard is the liners on this guy. If you look at the PM2 here, you can see that the liners extend all the way to the end of the G10. The entire knife has steel on the inside of it. As opposed to on this guy, where the liners only come back to about here. So if I show this off, you can see that the liners stop right about there, and then if we look at the other side here, liners stop back here. See, love having this transparent G10 for this review. So the entire back of this knife is just G10 with a lanyard tube, which is given a big beefy lanyard tube. The thing is, G10 is a very strong material. This is something I didn't give it a lot of credit for early on in my review career because I didn't understand the material that well. But the thing is, even if I try and pinch this, I'm really not able to. This is very stiff. It's very tough. I don't think this is a problem. But if you're coming at this from the military perspective of the most of the knife world, where it's like, oh my God, built like a tank, we've put titanium on titanium, then the G10 version isn't what's for you. There is a full titanium version if you want more, but it gets a lot heavier and maybe gets a little less fun to carry on a regular basis. So the partial liners catch people off guard. But again, I don't actually think it's a problem, except in one area we'll talk about later, but that's beside the point. So anyways, moving on. The price on this guy is okay. It's not an incredible value, but it's fine. $160 for this guy in S30V and $175 for S110V. And honestly, that feels like a much better value to me. You're getting a pretty substantial steel upgrade, at least for a lot of cutting purposes, for a relatively small price. And so, the price on this guy is okay. Considering that the PM2, which is not all that much smaller and has full liners, is $120. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I can live with that. Things that I have a little more trouble living with is that this is absolutely huge. This is a weirdly large knife. I mean, my token weirdly large knife is this guy. ZTO 452CF. You can see the Spyderco Military is not that far in terms of difference. I mean, the blades are around the same length. They are, I mean, these are both hugely freaking beefy knives. And so, really, I think you have to be a bit of a huge person for this knife to make sense, really, at all. If you are a smaller human like me, carrying this knife, you just seem ridiculous. It's like you have a sword or something. Then finally, I'm not a big fan of the shallowness of the carry on this guy. When you're carrying this guy, this much of the knife is sticking up out of your pocket. And more importantly, the widest part of the blade here, the widest part of this knife is at the top of your pocket, which means if you're trying to slide your hand by this guy, you're going to catch on this jimping up here, and it's going to be relatively wide relative to, other options. So that's something I'm not in love with, is the shallowness of the carry. And so that's the bad here, is that it's very shallow in carry. It is absolutely huge. That's a selling point for some, but it's bad for me. The price on it is okay, not great, but the upgraded steel's a decent enough value. It's got partial liners, which I don't think is a big problem, and it's not a compression lock, which again, I think is just a surprise to some folks. Let's talk about what's ugly, because that is a big problem. First off, of course, I gotta, this guy is slathered in permanent thread locker, but Spyderco has sworn that off, so, sins of the father, I guess. I can't hold that against him anymore, but still, it's ugly. Next thing, and the last ugly thing, is that this is a tip-down only carry knife. The only way that you are allowed to carry this knife is actually right side tip down. There is no other clip mounting point. There is no other way to carry this guy. And unfortunately, I can see why this is the case. Having these partial liners that don't extend all the way to the other clip area, where the clip would have to mount for tip-up carry, it kind of forces their hand a little bit, but it really kind of sucks. Because like I said, the thickest part of the knife is at the pocket level. The spine jimping catches your hands as you're going into your pocket, and overall, having a lanyard hole on a tip-down carry knife just seems weird. I mean, then the lanyard can only be used for, like, retention purposes, and that's, not perfect for a lot of situations. I really don't like tip-down carry, and I think on this knife, it's even worse just because of the strength of the jimping here. So this is a deal breaker for me personally. Even if I were in love with the size of this knife, the tip-down only is just like, no, I'm sorry, you're closed. It's ugly here, and it was a real pain in the neck carrying this guy around for review. And so I'm really hoping that the long-rumored Military 2 just extends the liner a little bit further on one side at least to get me a a tip-up carry option. Because otherwise, I have a lot of trouble here. But that is a matter of taste, I guess. So, there you go. That's the ugliest tip-down only and red Loctite. Let's move on to the final conclusions. So look, final conclusion, this is a pretty good knife, 100%. I can acknowledge that every day of the week. It cuts things well. It's very well made. It is benefiting from many years of subtle tweaks and improvements. It is very, very ergonomic, and maybe most refreshing to me is that it doesn't fall into that tactical knife-making trap of military, meaning sharp and pry bar that doesn't cut. There's a whole bunch of good there, and that's to me great. But the thing is, at the same time, this is a knife that is not meant for me, because it is absolutely huge, and I am, well, not. It's pretty big, it's a little bit bulky, and let's face it, I'm not the target market. I am not military. That's not my background at all. I am a desk jockey at best. And so this isn't meant for me. And honestly, I gotta say, tip-down carry, at least for me, this kills the knife. So it's not gonna be for me. And in fact, I think it's not going to be for a lot of people. And if you're looking for something that's big and slicey, another option that I think is gonna be for more people is actually the Spyderco Endura. So this is a version using Packerwood scales and a HAP 40 steel, but you can get them in a variety of colors and steels and whatnot. The thing is, the Endura's got some advantages. It is thinner, and it is a little bit lighter in most configurations than your military. It is slicey as well, actually a little slicier because the blade stock is much thinner than on your military. It is substantially cheaper. This special edition is the same price here. The base model in VG10 steel, which given is a little bit of a lesser steel than S30, at least for most people, is about $100 cheaper, and ZDP steel gets you $60 cheaper. Still pretty cheaper. And, overall, it's a nicer package to carry because you get right side or left side tip up or tip down. You lose a little bit of one-hand operation. You go away from the liner lock to the back lock where you have to do kind of the wiggle and the push thing, and you lose about 1/4 inch of excess blade, but let's face face it, you don't need that extra quarter inch, really, do you? But anyways, I think the Endura is going to be a really great choice for a lot of folks. But the thing is, even if you're one of the people who this really is designed for, you want something that's a big, beefy cutting tool that's pretty lightweight and you're okay with the tip down, it is then a pretty solid choice. And if you want something that's huge and beefy but also light and slicey, then I think calling in the Military might not be a bad idea for you. There you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and thanks very much for watching. Get it? Tank? Military? And I hope this has been a Air Force and your knife decision. Okay, I'm going to quit, guys. Have yourselves a good one. Bye now.